Okay, hello and annyeonghaseyo everybody. Welcome to our first National Security Language Initiative for Youth virtual event of 2016. This event is called Transportation and Commuting Through Seoul. Thank you all very much for joining us. We're excited to be hearing from students on the National Security Language Initiative for Youth program in South Korea. Today, we are also joined by NSLI-Y alumni, friends and family members, educators, and students. During today's event, our NSLI student speakers will present about various aspects of traveling around Seoul, including what it's like to walk around the city, travel on the subway, and how to navigate on the bus system. This theme was chosen to give students, educators, and others in the U.S. an inside view into the unique experiences of NSLI students in South Korea, specifically through the lens of their commutes in Seoul. We are very much looking forward to them sharing their valuable insights, observations, and multimedia. We'd like to start off with a brief overview of what will be happening during this virtual event. The NSLI students in groups will each take turns presenting on their topics. During the presentation, the chat box on the bottom right corner of your screen will be open for any comments or questions you may have, and we of course encourage lots of dialogue, including in Korean. Just a note to please just be aware that for the students, if you click on the right side on the chat box, it may enlarge just like it did, so just be aware of that. Thank you. And we'll be monitoring the questions, so if the students are not able to answer them during the presentations, they can answer them during the Q&A. And the Q&A will be at the end, and at this time, this time will be devoted to your questions for the students. Okay, so now we'd like to do a little icebreaker and ask you to share where you are joining us from today. So I'm going to maybe count down from 3 to 1, and then you'll grab the purple icon, the purple pin icon, to where you are in the world. So do you know what you're going to do with the purple pin icon? You're going to drag it to where you are in the world. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, right, as Nicole said, also feel free to type in the chat box if you want to do that too. So lots of us in North America and obviously in Korea. Wonderful, thank you. Oh, before we talk about the student presenters, we'd also like to do a quick poll about what your affiliation is with the NSLI program. I know you already filled that in as you joined, but it'd be great if we could also see right now quickly who you are. All right, and now you should see the results of our little poll. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining us and showing your support to these NSLI scholars during their academic year in Korea. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce our National Security Language Initiative for Youth student presenters. Presenting for us today are Alexei, Will, and Lauren, and they'll be talking about walking through Seoul. Ari, Luke, and Jalen will then present about the subway. And finally, last but definitely not least, TC, Sarah, and Katie will present on commuting by bus. Alexei, Will, and Lauren, your group, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. My name is Lauren, and I am from Charlottesville, Virginia. I applied to NSLI because I had a strong interest in the Korean language and culture. I had been studying Korean for a couple years before I did the program, and I am here today to talk to you about food culture and street food. Number one, the NSLI-Y kids, we all have a favorite chicken place that we go to. It's called Tweegiri. We have become kind of close to the chicken chewing, which is the chicken, like the guys who make the chicken. And we always insa to them, which is like bowing and saying, 안녕하세요. And we love to eat their chicken, especially TC. So that's one great thing about being in a city. You have a lot of street food that you can choose from. Some other things are some traditional markets. Me and my host family, usually my host mom, we will go to traditional markets, which are usually run by older Korean people, such as 할아버지 and 할머니, which are like the grandparents age. And So we go there and we get meat and various like clothing. I bought some like really comfortable pants and other things. We also buy fruit. Near my house, there's a fruit vendor, and I call him the fruit man, but I always go there and I get kiwi really cheaply because kiwi is my favorite fruit. He gives me about 16 kiwi for 3,001, which is only about like $2.60 estimate. And in Hongdae, where we have Korean class, it's a lot more expensive. So if you go to Incheon, then you can get some cheaper fruit. So I will pass it on to Lexi now.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Hi, so thank you for joining our event. My name's Alexei, and I come from a small town called Hanover, New Hampshire. It has a population of about 10,000 people, so to give you a comparison, Seoul has 10 million people. I applied to this program because I'm half Korean, but I didn't grow up learning Korean, so it's a great opportunity to connect to my roots and understand some more of my culture. So as Lauren said, I will be continuing on the walking theme, and I'm going to be talking about how in Seoul, when you walk around and you see the surrounding architecture, the buildings, the markets, the people, you can quickly tell that Seoul is a unique city in that the past and the present really coexist. So Seoul is known as one of the most Hyundai Chokin, or one of the most modern cities in the world. For example, Seoul is famous for new districts such as Gangnam, which you might have heard from Psy's song, where you can see tall skyscrapers, international companies, newly built and efficient transportation. Yeah, what makes Seoul so special, and one thing that I've really enjoyed by just walking around and wandering, or maybe even just getting lost, is that while you're walking, you can really stumble upon the old, a 전통 적긴, or a 역사가 깊은, a traditional or historical site. So there really is no distinct separation between the old and the new in that sense with architecture. Like right next to a giant skyscraper, you might be able to see an old temple. So for example, as I'm walking along, you might see a Hanok Maul, which is an area, if you look at the top right picture, it's an area of old traditional housing. And actually, if you look in the back of this picture, you can see some really big apartments. So there's just the contrast there. You can also see 전통 시장s, as Lauren was saying, really traditional markets with harmonies and 할아버지s. You might even run into Joseon palaces, Buddhist temples. You can really, just by wandering around Seoul, you can experience some of the past. Also, one thing I'd like to mention is that the past is very important to Koreans, but as well as the respect for that past and the elders who come from it. And this respect is deeply rooted in Yugyo Confucian values that have been in Korea for centuries. So one important thing to think about is that as the city continues to modernize and we see new international hubs in Seoul, that these values and the buildings and tradition of the past are maintained. And here's one more picture on the bottom right, just to show you a Buddhist temple right next to some giant skyscrapers. Yes. I will pass it off to Will now.
So, one thing that comes to mind when I thought of Korea before I came here is how busy people are. So, like, high schoolers are studying from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. the next day. Students go to hagwons, or private educational institutes, after school and on weekends to just study for their suneung exam, just like the Korean SAT. And so all this busyness, I thought, would equate to a lack of art in Seoul, which is completely untrue. So even though there's a lack of freedom in high school, it doesn't stop people from pursuing what they have interest in. So one of the first times I noticed art in Seoul is when I just was walking around Hongdae, which is like the art hub of Seoul. And if you just walk around on any afternoon, you can see people dancing or performing magic or music for earning money, just busking or practicing or just having fun. And I've seen things from like fire-breathing magicians to K-pop dancing high school students to people rapping or sitting down with their guitars and just fiddling around. And so there's also a whole second world behind what you just see on the streets with all the posters you can see everywhere. All of the posters advertise things from things like fries, concerts, to there was a New Year's concert in Times Square at Seoul, but there are also a lot of smaller things to explore, like taking guitar lessons in coffee shops, or like I plan to go to a concert where musicians perform and people have a cook-off at the same time. And so there are a bunch of really awesome things in Seoul. You just need to look around when you walk.
Okay, Nicole is just pulling up a video that we'd like to share with the students. This is Walking Through Seoul.
Yes, so this video is in Hongdae, and it'll just show you the difference between being on one side of the intersection or the other. The first part of the video, we're on a quieter side of Seoul, or of Hongdae, where there aren't as many people. You can see a guy bringing fish in a little truck. It's a little bit more traditional. And then in the second half of the video, we actually cross to the other side of the intersection, the busy part of Hongdae, where the nightlife is, just to show you the juxtaposition, yet also the past and the present, how they coexist in Seoul.
Strut. Okay, and now the next group will continue with presenting about the subway.
Hi, my name is Luke Thomas. I'm a current student at NSLI, and I started learning Korean because I was really like the food, and so I started learning Korean, and then I got interested in the culture, and now I'm here. So Seoul is a very large city with a population of about 10 million people, and the Seoul capital area being 25 million. As a result, they need a state-of-the-art subway system to keep up with millions of people that use it each day. The Seoul Subway, with 18 lines and over 500 stations, it can be quite daunting at first, but its organization, cleanliness, and efficiency make it one of the best subway systems in the world. Additionally, almost every year, the Korean government is extending the coverage of the subway system to more and more areas of the Seoul capital area, making it a convenient and easy-to-use tool for the ever-growing population of Seoul to get around without the use of personal transport. Both the people of Seoul and NSLI students use the subway system to go all over Seoul, and it ends up using up a lot of your time, with some people riding it for 3 or more hours a day. But because of the subway system, commuting or finding their way in Seoul each day. Instead, the NSLI students and many residents of Seoul use this time to study, learn Korean, read, or just rest on their way home. This provides a great place to complete work without the worry of not making it home on time. Not only that, but after using it for a while, you can become familiar enough with the system that it is a simple and stress-free process. You can essentially walk through your stations and transfers on autopilot because the routes are well marked. It's completely different from New York City. For example, they have screens that tell you where to go and when trains are coming into stations. Additionally, the stations and trains are safe enough and clean enough so you don't have to worry about your safety as much as you would in a train stop or on a train in the US. Seoul Metro offers a way for commuters to get around Seoul, but it's also a connection to the rest of Korea through the KTX rail. KTX stands for Korean Train Express and allows people in Seoul to quickly get to other places in Korea on a train traveling at over 200 miles per hour. While this is somewhat expensive, the ability to go from Seoul to Busan, which is the southern city in the eastern part of Korea, in under 3 hours allows many people to take vacations without having to spend the time driving or pay the price of a plane ticket. While many people spend a large part of their time during the day commuting in Seoul, the subway system allows for this time to be less of an inconvenience when compared to other transportation systems. Now I'm going to pass it off to Alex.
Hello, my name is Ariel Moore, and I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I'll be talking about subway systems also. And I basically use the subway systems on a daily basis. And one thing I really like about the subway system here in Seoul is that you can see so many different parts of the city really without even coming up above ground. As we all know, subway systems can be very crowded and busy, and missing one train can be the difference of the picture that's here on the left and on the right, like night and day. And I'm fairly confident that every NSLI here on program has experienced being on a train in the left picture, but it's not always at that capacity, but it's just something that we experience. It's not always at the extremes, but like that sometimes. Now going back to the subway, how the subway allows you to see the city. I personally, sometimes if I'm on the subway for a little too long and my phone is maybe dead and I have nothing else to do, I start to watch people. Like I become a people watcher. And I really start to take notice of the people that are around me. And if you look through the people that you see on the subway at different times, you can really get a feel of what part of the city you're in or of what's just going on. Like in the mornings, I'd wake up very early for school, and I'd be in the subway station at like 6:30 a.m. And you can really, you'd see at that time like subway employees maybe mopping or cleaning up for the day. You'd see men and women in like dark suits, getting ready, reading papers and documents on the subway train. And you'd also see like half asleep high school students, just like myself, trying to make their way to school. In the middle of the day, when we would be going into Korean language classes, you'd see a lot of small children with their mothers. Maybe they're heading off to a park, or they're running errands, or you see college students out grabbing lunch together, or you see ajumas and ajishis, which is the Korean way of saying older men and women. And there's a huge hiking culture here, so you'd always see ajumas and ajishis coming back from a hike, or maybe they're on their way to a hike. This really shows how diverse the city is with things that you can do, and how people of all ages, there's really something for everyone to do in the city of Seoul. Also, and then back to the morning, when you see early morning people in their dark suits getting ready to work, it shows how much Korea really values working hard. And you can just see that culture of the city just through the subway systems. Late in the evenings, when we're leaving and on our way home, you'd see a lot of college students dressed really well. Maybe they're on their way to a club or they're going out with their friends. You'd see office workers coming from a long day after work. Maybe they're going out for drinks with their coworkers like many do, or they're just trying to get home in time. And you might see a foreigner, another fellow foreigner, looking completely lost in the subway system. Either way, this just shows how bustling life is here in Seoul, even into the late hours of the night. And I love that you can see the whole city without even going above ground. You can really get a sense of how people live here and how interesting it is to live here and how there are so many different things going on just by being in the subway. And just by hopping on a train. So, thank you, and I'll pass it on to Jalen.
Hi, I'm Jalen, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And I guess basically Luke and Ari summed up basically pretty much the entire subway system. So I guess I'll just talk about things inside the subway, like the Seoul subway station. And so inside the Seoul, they do sell the most Pyongyang things, which are like convenient things. So like they'll have cheap mittens or like just pocket warmers, especially for the winter. They have a lot of sweaters and just things that you can normally find in regular like department stores. And things are always like $1. another thing is the 학생 discount, student discount for their T-Money cards. So, okay, so for adults, going to the subway is like $1 or maybe like $1 to $2 depending on where you're going. But for students, it's like what, like 800 won, which is like 60 cents, maybe 60 cents up to 161, which is like 0.13 cents or something like that. So yeah, and another thing, like the subway, the other thing the subway has to offer is like Seoul is all connected, so you don't have like there's no limit in where you can go, what you can do. So if you want to go to Sincheon, you can go to Sincheon, go to Hongdae to see the performances, go to Gwanghwamun to go, what is it, Gwangwon? Go, what is Gwangwon? Okay. Sightseeing, to go sightseeing. Yeah, I'll pass it on to the buses.
So hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from a really small town in Massachusetts called Berlin. It has about 2,500 people, so the contrast between there and Seoul is pretty big. I apologize for my voice. I have a very bad cold, so I sound mildly like an old man. But yeah, so today TC, Katie and I are going to talk about bus tacos, which are simultaneously somehow the most intimidating and rewarding form of public transportation. The three of us, especially since we lived in Incheon, which relies a lot more on the bus system, all three of us have had a lot of experience navigating the system and sort of getting a better feel for it. Although students who live in Seoul also ride buses a lot as well. So my experience has varied between two extremes. One day I'm full on face planting on a bus in front of several of my high school classmates after we get back from our suha gyohae, which was very embarrassing. And the next I'm coming to the very shocking realization that by taking the bus, I shaved about 20 minutes off my very long commute home from Hongdae. So there's definitely very intimidating parts of riding the buses, but then it can also save your life sometimes. So as you can see in this picture, the picture on the right-hand side, yes, the right-hand side, bus stations can be very, very intimidating, especially if you're at a station that's as busy as the one at Hongdae Guyok, which NSLI students spend a lot of time at, because there's literally dozens of buses coming and going in what seems like 5 different directions every couple of minutes. So making sure that you catch the right bus going in the right direction, it's definitely no easy feat, but once you're able to do it successfully, you can literally do anything. You can get anywhere, and it's a lot, depending on where you're trying to go and where you're going from, then it can definitely save you a lot of time. Aside from just the convenience of buses, which can connect subway stations and locations that aren't accessible by subway, if you ride the bus, then you're able to see what the city looks like beyond just the subway stations and the subway, the tunnels. You're not restricted to hopping from subway station to subway station, and then even though the subway stations are, very efficient and very clean, at the same time, if you ride the bus, you're able to see how it all connects and stuff like that. So, for example, at my new house, I just moved to Seoul because we're on winter break right now. And from my house, there are 3 different buses I can take to get to 3 different subway stations, reaching 4 different of the major subway lines. And I actually have a video, and I believe that needs time to buffer. So if Nicole wants to start doing that. But I took a video of my bus ride to one of my subway stations, and since I live about halfway up Namsan, which is one of the mountains in the center of Seoul, I get to see pretty much the whole city on the way down, and it's really exciting. I apologize for the bad quality. I was sitting down, and there was a guy standing right over me and judging me for being very touristy, so that happened, and so it's kind of like very covert. The view is also much prettier at night, but at nighttime it's rush hour, and 90% of the time I wind up standing like this. There's really no room for taking a video. But so yeah, it's really cool to be able to see the whole city. I also get to pass by Namdaemun, which is one of the national treasures of Korea. And at night they light it up and it's really pretty. Yeah, the buses are really cool because you're able to see not just like how to get from one place to another, you also get to see like what there is in between, and you sort of get a better feel for what the city's like and sort of how the city's built up around all of the different things. And I'm kind of stalling while the video's loading. So one of my subway stations is Sichangyeok, which is one of it's in front of City Hall. And since I take the bus to go there, I was able to like come to the realization that it's like, even though if you look at the subway map, it's not like inherently connected. You can see that like Sichang and then Namdaemun and then Gwanghwamun, they're like all in a row. And even though subway stations, like it'd take you 20 minutes by subway to get from one place to another, you can easily just like take a bus, like a straight shot down. Yeah, but yeah, this is my video. I sped it up. Bus drivers don't actually drive that fast. So yeah, this is sort of like one half of the city that you can see, and it's really pretty. I don't know if the video's working. Yeah, it's really cool because like Namsan Tower, which is on Namsan, like it's a big place for like tourists to go because you can see the whole city. But I just get to see it every day, so it's casual. This is not during rush hour. It's like sort of, I think I took this like, it was like 9 or 10 in the morning, so it wasn't that busy. I got a seat, which is very dead on the bus. Especially since you're going uphill the whole time. Like, I've had like my backpack shoved in people's faces and stuff. It's not, you don't feel very, yeah. To Seoul usually, especially if you're in school there. So you get to cross the Han River and stuff. So there's a bunch of different things that you're able to see like, from a different perspective from the buses. I'm going to pass it off to TC.
Hello, I'm TC and I am 16 and I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, so I'm very familiar with crowded places and big cities. So the transition to coming to Korea wasn't really that difficult for me. But as Sarah said, the bus system can be kind of difficult to figure out, and if you don't have it figured out, it can feel overwhelming and like kind of like a nightmare, but it doesn't really have to be. So I have experienced getting off at the wrong stop or getting on the wrong bus quite a few times, which has actually turned out well for me a few times. Like I found a mall called Square One. I live in Incheon, so that's in Incheon. That ended up being one of my favorite places to hang out that I've gone to with Korean classmates and with Sarah too quite a bit. And I found that because I got off on the wrong stop. But sometimes it's not so fun and you end up being absolutely nowhere and you had somewhere you really had to be. Which can feel horrifying, but it's actually really easy to backtrack on the buses, which I found out way too long after I got here. But basically, if you go right across the street, there's going to be another bus stop where if you get on the same number bus, it'll take you back to the stop that you got on at, which has come in handy quite a few times. And bus schedules can also change kind of suddenly. I know that Sarah, me, and another girl, Hannah, have experienced that. We go to a school in Incheon, and we have to leave early so that we can get to Seoul for our language classes. And our bus would usually come at 10:50 every day, but then it started coming a lot later. And this happened in the winter, so we'd be standing outside in the cold, as you can see in the picture right here. But there's a convenient app. Koreans have apps for everything. They have an app for the subway system. They have an app for the bus schedule. It's called Seoul Bus. And if you type in your bus number or type in the name of the bus station that you're at, it'll tell you down to the exact second when your bus is going to be there. It'll say like 3 minutes and 12 seconds. And it's really convenient because you don't really have to wait outside in the cold as much. You can stay inside and just come out right before your bus is going to come, which has been an absolute lifesaver, especially now that we're getting into colder weather. It is currently 7 degrees outside. But yeah, the buses are actually not as complicated to figure out, and it doesn't have to be turned into something that's so horrifying if you have this information and if you know exactly what to do. So that is a pretty cool thing that I found out. And I'm going to pass it on to Katie, who will tell you more about the bus system.
Awesome. Okay, hi. I'm Katie McMahon. I am from Eastern Kentucky, and I lived in a small town, a little bit more than 4,000 people. So I really didn't know anything about cities before I came to Seoul. So I will be talking to you about the bus colors, what they mean, and maybe how they can solve some of your problems if you ever come to Seoul. So me, Sarah, and TC all lived in Incheon, which is a little bit farther from Seoul. And so our commutes were really long on the subway, like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours for some of us. About halfway through our Incheon like homestay, we learned to take the red bus. Red buses are for long distance transit, and if they stop near where you live, like near your subway station or near your house, you can cut down your commute time quite a lot. By subway, my commute was about an hour and a half. By bus, it was about 45 minutes, which is a big difference there, especially at the end of the day. So I love, love, love red buses. Sometimes, me especially, I've gotten lost quite a few times in Seoul. If you're lost in Seoul, the best thing to do is just calm down and go to the closest subway bus stop that you can find. The blue and green buses take you to the nearest subway station, and from there it's really, really easy to find your way. There are tons of subway maps, and the subway is really hard to kind of get lost on. So just take a red bus if you want long distance transit. Take a blue or green if you want to find the nearest subway. Also, there are yellow buses. Yellow buses take you to the nearest shopping areas. So if you want to get some souvenirs for your family or anything else, just take a yellow bus. And now we're going to have our Q&A session.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all there, all your lovely faces. Again, thank you for your excellent presentations, and we're excited to have our audience ask you more questions now.
I saw a question that said, how long did it take all of you to learn Korean? And I'd really say that when you say learn Korean, it's like a process. So we're all working on our skills, and we learn new things every day, especially in class and living with your host families. So a lot of us came here just knowing how to read Hangul. So I'd say by winter break, we felt more confident in our speaking abilities, and we definitely felt like we had progressed way more than from where we came when we first got here on the program. So it's really, learning Korean is just really a process, and we're all just working for it. And I don't think there's an actual point where we can say that we've learned Korean, because we'd always be.
Thank you, Ari. Anyone else would like to share about in response to that?
So I was going to answer one of the questions in the chat box. It was from Ariel's mother about the tight squeeze in trains, and while a lot of the times there is you're completely packed against other people during rush hour, it's very everyone's kind of they stick to themselves, and so you can just take out a book, or if you have room to take out a book, that is. But no one ever says, in America we usually say like excuse me or something. No one ever says that. They just kind of like put a hand on your back or kind of slide through. And while some people might find it rude at first, it's kind of useful because you don't always have to like turn around and be like, oh no, excuse me. You can just.
Great, thank you, Luke. And I see lots of questions coming in the chat box. Thank you, audience, for all your great questions. If any of the students would like to just go ahead and answer one that you feel inclined to answer, you can go ahead.
So someone asked a question
Alexei and Lauren.
about how Koreans react to beginners in the language, and this applies to all of us, especially when we first came, and still now actually as we're learning. Koreans tend to be pretty surprised and actually quite excited and supportive that we're learning Korean, especially.
I don't know if anyone else is going to talk, but I was just going to comment on what Alexei said. I feel like a lot of people, what Alexei said, they're really surprised that a foreigner wants to learn their language, even though it's not a commonly spoken language. So like today, my family is actually moving today, so I'm actually currently in my mom's hagwon right now, which is like her English academy, so I could have internet. And I was helping one of the movers move a table before I came here, and he like obviously knew I was a foreigner, and he just had a conversation with me. And usually people, once you talk to them, they'll compliment you on how great your Korean is, even if you don't say a lot, you can just say a few words and they're so supportive, which I think is a really great thing because it really boosts your confidence and it makes you want to learn the language more so you can have a more fluent conversation with anyone.
I was just gonna add on to what Katie or Lexi was saying. Our teacher actually, because Will, Lauren, Lexi, and I are all in one class. Our teacher literally went through and like told us like which person Korean people would assume knew more Korean or less Korean. So like since Lexi is half Korean, she obviously looks like she would know more Korean. And I'm the only blonde one in our class. There's only one other blonde person in our program actually. So he just flat out told me that Korean people would assume that I knew no Korean and that they'd be really surprised. So I thought that was really, I don't know, like it's not really discrimination. It's more just like stereotypes and sort of realizing that people have preconceived notions about you just based on your physical appearance. It's kind of, I don't know. I thought that was funny.
I have one quick thing to add on to Sarah's comment. So the whole thing of like looking like I'm half Korean, so sometimes people come up to me expecting that I'm fully fluent.
Great, thank you all for your insight. There was a question about whether you guys have any advice for a student who might be looking into the NSLI-Y Korea program.
I mean, I'm just going to comment. I would say start studying Korean now because I think that can really help when you first get here. If you already know some Korean and you have a basic knowledge of the Korean language, you can get out of a lot of like awkward situations with that Korean knowledge. And also you can kind of jumpstart like learning Korean while you're on the program, which would be.
I just want to add on something that, because like I've told a lot of people at home about this program because I did the summer program a couple of years ago. And something really important to keep in mind both when you're applying and if you actually get accepted and go on the program is it's definitely not a vacation. The program is centered around learning language, and because of that, you will spend what feels like every waking moment trying to cram as much vocabulary and grammar into your head, and then when you're not studying, you practicing Korean with your host family or with your classmates or with random people you meet on the streets. And literally with anything in life, you get out what you put in. So if you come into this program with the attitude of, hey, it's just like people are paying me to travel, this is awesome, then you're not going to get anything out of it, and the experience is not going to be the same as if you take it seriously and you actually put the effort in to learn the language and to pay attention in class and to do well on tests and everything like that. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. It's not like 24, like you can still have fun. Like it's not, they don't lock us in classrooms.
So about doing the program and also just to answer the quick question, do NSLI kids hang out together during the trip? We see each other pretty much every day, I think. And for the I think like they talk about culture shock, and there are some things that you're not really used to. But one of the things I would like I would really say is important is getting to know like your daily routines. Because like if you eat something and it's not good, and you don't like a certain Korean food, you have to eat Korean food 3 times a day. And so that really affects your experience. At least it does for me. If I eat something, my favorite food in Korea is probably uh that's really hard. I'm sorry. I can't answer that. They're all really good. But if you eat something you don't I don't know, cow intestine filled with blood, it's called sundae. Um, it kind of like sets off like your day a bit. You're like, oh, I didn't really like that.
Great. We want to cut over to Ari and Jalen, who have their hands up and got kicked out. And then also, I really liked a question that just popped up about creativity in Seoul's education system. If you could also think about responding to that question, that would be awesome. So here goes to Ari and Jalen.
Okay, so we saw a question. It was asking about how many times do we go to school and what's our schedule like and how many hours are we in school. Well, we're part of like 2 schools. So we have our Korean high school on one hand and we have our Korean language school on the other. So if for our Korean high school, most of them I'd say like the median time would be 8 o'clock that school starts. For me, it was 7:50. I had to be in my seat. Um, so you're staying at school from like 7:50, 8 o'clock, maybe 8:20 to usually maybe 3 or 4, 3 or 4 o'clock on like Wednesdays and Fridays. And then we also go to Korean language school. So we leave our high schools around like lunchtime. So we're usually always in a classroom setting during the week if we're not in winter break. For most of our time, we're in a classroom setting. But we get a pretty good amount of free time like on weekends, especially during this winter break. Even though we are busy, we still have time to like see each other, work together, do homework together. But yeah, that's kind of like the time frames at which we're in Korean high school and Korean language school. As far as the question about is creativity stifled in such a structured lifestyle and environment, that's a really hard question. I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no. It's hard to gauge because in Korean high school classes, it's very lecture. At least at my school, it's very lecture based. So you were listening to lectures and you were taking notes on what the teacher was saying. And I don't think that's a bad style of teaching. It's just different. And I guess it doesn't encourage much of a dialogue, but then you're still learning at the same time. So if that type of teaching or that kind of setting stifles creativity, I'm not really sure. I'm not.
For me, on the other hand, I go to a more like specialized school. I go to Seoul Digitech, so the kids are focusing on like digital art, digital media, like character design, things like that they want to pursue in the future. So there's a lot more creativity involved in the school setting. So they don't not to say that they don't pay attention in their core classes, but they don't stress it as much as like 2D design or 3D design or those other types of classes. So I would say that there's a lot of creativity in that setting, if that answers the question.
True. Yeah, and my high school is a foreign language high school, and they're really adamant on sending kids abroad to college and to colleges here, like the top 3 colleges here in Korea. So my high school is a very specialized, strict high school. Mine is not as lenient as his, which is like the arts high school. So.
Their high school like prepares their students to take the college entry exam, so the kids are
always studying.
But for my school, they don't. A lot of kids don't take that exam. They just go straight from high school they get internships and then they go straight to the company, or they can just by themselves.
Yeah,
So it
that's
all
interesting to hear even among you guys what a diversity there is in experiences at the high school level. And we actually are winding up in time, so we'll take one more comment. It looks like maybe you guys covered all your points, so thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for all your great questions. You know, I think there was a really great dialogue here and sharing of experiences. So before we go, we also wanted to share a few resources with you. You see the link for the NSLI for Youth website as well as the NSLI Interactive website. And the first website is an informational website which includes information about the NSLI program, including how to apply, and many other useful, you know, a lot of other useful information around the program. So definitely check that out, especially if you're interested in applying for the program. And then the second website, NSLI Interactive, if you haven't already visited, we definitely encourage you to do that. This website showcases the language learning and cross-cultural experiences of NSLI students through their stories and multimedia. And we'll also be posting the recording of this virtual event in the next week or so on the website. So definitely go visit it, and you can look back at the recording of this virtual event and share it with others if you'd like. We'll also be continuing to post stories and multimedia about this group of students as well as NSLI students in all the NSLI countries moving forward through this year and then onward through the summer and future years. And we'd like to just thank you all again so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our NSLI students in Korea and connecting with them. And we wanted to give a huge thank you to all of our students. Alexei, Will, Lauren, Ari, Luke, Jalen, TC, Sarah, and Katie. You've done an amazing job sharing about your experiences in Korea and, you know, really inspiring us all to hopefully, you know, learn Korean possibly and other languages and learn more about Korean culture. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. And we also wanted to give a little shout out to thank our amazing intern who's not here, Katie, but she did a lot of work helping us get this event together, as well as Alexei, our student, one of our NSLI students here who's just presented. We want to give her a special thank you for being our go-to student coordinator for this event. So thank you, Alexei, for all your hard work, and thank you all of you students who work very hard to put these great presentations together. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful evening in the US and day in Korea.